Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ÉCU podcast, an intern survival guide, where we teach you how to survive in Paris and during an internship at an indie festival. We have new hosts every week with different topics each time, ranging from music, fashion, tourism, but above all, independent cinema. We hope you like today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next edition of ÉCU's Intern Survival Guide. Warning: this podcast occasionally contains strong language which may be unsuitable for children, unusual humor which may be unsuitable for adults, and lots of LGBTQ+ jokes which may be unsuitable for assholes.
Hello, Andreas.
Hey, are you?
How are you?
I'm good.
Amazing.
A little bit sick, I think, but I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, so here with you today we are Tjasa. I am an HR and event management intern, and this is Wanmei.
Yeah, hi, I'm Wanmei, and I'm the HR intern.
Okay.
Great.
And okay, today we are talking with Andreas. Maybe you should firstly introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure. So I'm Andreas Kessler. I'm a director from Germany. I studied also in Germany, but finished studies like a year, one and a half year ago. And I also was once at your festival with a film called Sinking Ships, and I think it even won an award.
You did, yes.
If I remember correctly, that was
really
pretty
exciting.
cool. Unfortunately, that was during COVID, so I couldn't attend the festival in person. But yeah, and now I'm working on several projects.
Amazing. I also saw that you finished, I think, last year the film Nakam. Is that correct?
I finished that last year. Yeah.
And it also won an award, right?
It won. It premiered in the United States at the Cleveland International Film Festival, which is a Oscar qualifying festival, and they won the main award. So we qualified for the Oscars and now got until basically the shortlist. So we were part of the shortlist with our film. And at the moment, we are also running on other festivals, somewhere in the States, some in Germany. First, probably now there's coming up one in France, and so we'll see.
Amazing, congratulations for that.
So our theme today for the podcast is about what elements make a good film. So actually we do not really want to separate good films and bad films, but we want to discuss about how to appreciate a film from the point of a director, because you are a director, but we are like movie fans or movie lovers from the perspective of audience. So we want to approach this question from two perspectives. And so I think later we will start by talking about your film works, and we actually watched some of your film works and found it really amazing. And the second part we can talk more about different types of films, what you like, and why you want to choose the specific type of films to express your ideas.
Our first question while watching some of your films are, we realized that you are touching some pretty important but also some pretty hard topics. For example, the film Sinking Ships is talking about family relations, or more like family violence. Then you also have a film about a loving relationship, which is also kind of having a conflict with the professional lives of two violinists. And also the movie Nakam is a very hard film to watch, like from the perspective of like what is morally right and what is not. So what we wanted to ask for the first question is like, why exactly how are you choosing these topics, and what do you think are the features that you are using that are the best for expressing these kind of topics?
So when I started, for example, with the first film, the one about the two violinists being a couple and competing for the solo part in an orchestra, that was basically something that I wanted to tell out of a situation that I would know very well, because like I come partly out of a musician's family, and I know all those situations and the stress that is there and the competition and everything. And then also like being at film school, you kind of make your own experiences, and you realize like competition also gets into friendships and everything, and even relationships sometimes. So experiencing also that a little bit, I wanted to tell something that was very close to what I experienced in a way. And that was very interesting because I just knew about this situation, that there was like the possibility of playing behind a curtain, and then you could kind of start cheating with some objects or whatever, so you would get the part no matter like how you play. And and I was kind of drawn to that idea and interested to understand more about it. And then like step by step we kind of created a team at the Film Academy and started working on a story that would kind of portray those two people in a relationship. So that was very interesting because I did a lot of research on the spot. I checked out like how those competitions really look like, what they feel like and everything, and then tried to kind of put that on the screen, or like make that happen for the short film as close to reality as possible. And of course there's always like dramatization and everything, but generally that was quite interesting. And we had some screenings with musicians, of course, also. And they always had very like hard tension feelings about watching the films, because they kind of felt it was quite close, and waking up that trauma that they had from other competitions that they played in or something. That was quite fun. But and then the other topics also, like with sinking ships, I wanted to make a film that was very reduced to the minimum it kind of needed, like a family, some spots where it would happen and everything. And then I worked also with a scriptwriter on the story, and then we came up with this idea, okay, what about if we tell a family story in this horrible world of domestic violence? And we started also doing a lot of research and seeing like how hard it is from the outside to understand a person who is inside of such a relationship. And so we decided we wanted to make a film that kind of would show, that wouldn't give like easy answers or anything, but that would show how people would feel and how they would have a hard time to get out, to change their pattern of behavior and everything. And that was also like tough for me as directing this, because I never worked with a child actor before, and then I cast like many children. I think we had like 60 to 70 children like for the casting, and then found this young boy who was like able to play that role. And all this was also like challenging, because I wanted to also stay very true to what people would have experienced if they were in such a relationship. And but that was also very interesting, because on the one hand, on set you have really like 10 scenes and everything, but then on the other hand, the time around the set was often like very light and very funny, because the group really engaged with everything and the topic and everything. And then with NACAM, I read that story also a long time ago. I didn't know how to approach it, and it was a true story, and I always kind of wanted to make a film about it. But then at some point I started making or writing a little bit about it. And once I found out that I could kind of make this film through the perspective of this young boy who wants to take revenge, but who has to sacrifice his best friend in order to do it, I tried to do that through the perspective of this young boy, and to kind of see how revenge wouldn't be only about like vengeance and everything, but also about like loss and kind of creating. You had that feel that you lost somebody, and then you have to create new loss in a way. And I found that like very much like a downward spiral for this situation, and something I could connect a lot more to. And so that was also like completely different project in many ways, because we had different languages like Russian, Ukrainian, Jewish, German. I mean, I speak German, of course, but not all of the other languages. And and so we had also like with the historic kind of part of it, we had a lot of challenges, but also was very interesting how this young boy was able to connect to the character, and how he would kind of emotionally try to show everything that's happening in his head at that moment through his face. And then we shot the whole thing and now showing it at festivals and stuff. But yeah, they all were tough, and with all the films you have kind of every day you have often like very tough scenes to shoot, but in a way I guess that also creates a lot of tension within the whole group, and that's something that's very interesting, because often like the people engage a lot when they do things like that, or are challenged, basically, I guess.
This is exactly what I was interested while watching these movies, is like you are working also with child actors and you are touching such hard themes. How do you make it on set, that it doesn't it is not too hard for them, how do you make it more light? How did you succeed with that?
I mean with sinking ships, it was a lot of preparation in a way, because some of the tough scenes we didn't shoot with everybody involved all the time, so the young boy didn't have to be there when they get into this huge fight. That was something we could do. And then of course you have to talk to the parents, you have to explain the whole topic, you have to talk about the script, you have to make everybody understand that if they want to join the project, they know what's kind of going to happen, because it's not a small love film or something, or like a nice story or so. But then on the other hand, I realized what is more important is that the surroundings are like good and everybody feels very welcome, and then you can kind of really do this acting idea that you kind of put yourself into a role, but then also you can go back to reality and realize that all this is just part of a fiction idea, basically. And also like with Nakam, it was similar, but also the young boy was he was very mature in a way already, and he knew a lot about shooting already. I think that was necessary, because he had that kind of main part. He had to kind of lead the film in a way, and that was crazy, because he was, first of all, he came to the casting all on his own. In Berlin, which is a huge city, basically, and then he also during the shooting he was sometimes on his own, because his family already had to go to another place at that moment, and so we tried to really engage him into the team, and he had some. I think he really enjoyed it, and that's the main part. You have to kind of make people enjoy the whole experience, and then they can also like start to engage emotionally and have a good time. And then also you have this other actor who plays the piano, right? And he kind of was really like a mentor for him also during the pauses during shooting and everything, so they kind of could work together and help each other with scenes and whatever. So that was really an interesting kind of collaboration as well.
Yeah, I must say that when I was watching Nakam, like the actor actually totally surprised me, because I thought he was like super amazing.
Good.
Yeah, like, it was just especially like shooting such hard scenes, but I got totally sucked into the story because of him also. But okay, let's get a little bit more to our topic. In your films, I see that you have some scenes that are very intense, and with like all of the films that I watched, like every one of them surprised me in a way that I just didn't know that it is going to go the way that it did. So how did you succeed with that? Could you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, you always try to probably like start the story from within side of the character, and to kind of create some expectation that is eventually always like revealed to be wrong. So you kind of expect him to not get angry at his wife, but then he gets angry in the very next moment already, and you feel like it's too early, and like those small like expectation. I mean, often you know that in also Nekem he's going to probably do the attack, but the question is always like how and what can change, and all the like points that can shift at the same time. So like how and who will be in and everything, and so we always took a lot of time to write the scripts and to kind of see how are all the what are all the things that can happen. For blind edition, it was very extreme because we had this pencil that he could throw in order to manipulate the competition. But he could throw it, she could throw it, she could take one, she could steal it, nobody could throw it and everything. So we had like millions of options that were kind of possible, and or the curtain drops. No, I don't know, like, but something could always happen. And then we always started to think, okay, what's the core in, for example, Chiron, the musician, what he wants to do. And then at some point we started to realize, okay, his struggle is he might not win because of his perfection. So it kind of is interesting if he has all the options, chooses right, like morally right, and then wins, and then she thinks he did it, and then like this is like the tragedy of the whole story in a way, because everybody did everything more or less right, and still it kind of separates them maybe in the end.
Yeah, but I feel like that was the beauty of that film, that in any way like all went good, like for his career, for example. But throughout the film, I was always like, oh no, he's gonna do this, no, he's gonna do this, oh, she's gonna do this. Like you always expect that something is going to happen, and then I feel like every scene like happened totally differently than I imagined that it's going to happen. So that's what I really loved about that movie, because it surprised me at every step of it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean that was the whole work, because also I wanted to show the two characters in that film, for example, very truthful. I didn't want to show them in a way that it would become like a fight, and then they kind of get worse and worse and really bitch around. I don't know, like get crazy and everything. And I wanted them to kind of fight for their relationship during the whole time, like more than, I mean, the struggle's there anyway, but I wanted to show two people who actually are still kind of in love with each other, and try to kind of do the right thing. But then understandably, they kind of also, I mean, of course he has struggles with telling her, and that story wouldn't happen if he would say, hey, I got this offer and we have to sort this out honestly. I mean, that's not very interesting, I guess. But yeah, we wanted to this kind of thing that everybody has, like being kind of egoistic at that point, and trying to do their best, and then still this lie that's always gonna be there, and nobody's ever gonna be able to solve it. Nobody's gonna find the truth. There's no way to prove anything anymore. Which eventually raises the question: okay, isn't relationship all about trust? And anyways, and then for example, Nekem was a little bit of different, similar, but it's a different situation. I didn't want the boy to ignite the explosives and do the attack when he knew the pianist would be inside of the restaurant. So he had to kind of go out, and once he would really do it, he also thinks like everything is right, everything I do is going in the way I would wish it for, and then it eventually doesn't. But that was always the idea with those kind of situations.
Yeah. Okay, I also have a question about what you have said. Like you're trying to express a kind of contradiction in every relationship, that there is no relationship that is totally all about fight or bad, but also there is no relationship that is all built on trust and love and peace. So the question I want to ask is that how do you express it, or how do you use some specific methods to let the audience sense this contradiction? Because when I was watching like the sinking ship, I feel that the perspective of shooting is kind of very objective and not include so much emotions, but at the same time some lens you use in this film that always make and at the same time make audiences think in that specific relationship or that scene. So maybe I can feel some specific point of the story makes me uncomfortable, but the whole story or the whole expression is still objective and not so passionate or not so emotional. So how do you use this kind of methods, or how do you choose the method?
Yeah, I mean, the idea was always like not to kind of to make the audience feel, or the hope is always to make the audience feel a lot, but not to show like actors who are crying all the time or whatever. I mean, they should always fight before they do something that kind of really gets into a new like emotional state. So when Sarah, for example, after this horrible attack from her husband, walks off, sees her child was still there, waiting and seeing everything that kind of happened, she still maintains this state of nothing happened, which is the horrible idea of it, but also understandable. How would you else kind of deal with that situation? And she feels like a lot of shame and a lot of struggle with facing her son, which she thought is already gone. And then she walks away, and only at that moment when she thinks she's kind of on her own, she starts really crying at that moment, and all this emotional flow kind of exits her, culminates in a way, and then with the camera we still see the boys actually following her, seeing everything that happens, and that kind of point of view was in that film very important. There was another scene in the car in the beginning which was very interesting, because we had like, I don't know, we had like big shots, drone shots, whatever, from the forest. It was really beautiful and everything. And then at the editing we realized, and somehow I also realized that before, I think, but that we wanted to stay all the time inside of the car. So there's no shot that kind of exits the car or exits the kind of vehicle. There's one shot where when they get off the road, we're a little bit out, but we always wanted to stay with the faces. And that's something that I also discovered for myself as something I like, that to just watch like how a face changes through the like course of a film. Also in NACAM, for example, we always wanted to stay with the show this portrait of this boy in all the states of the story, and to not lose the focus on, I don't know, surroundings, because everything costs a lot, everything is very hard to generate, and then you would love to show like big sets, and we put this lamp over there, look at the lamp and whatever. But then in the end, what's really interesting is how this character develops, I guess, and that was like always like this decision to stay close to them, and to at the same time, maybe that's also what you meant, to kind of observe in a very very like in a way that wouldn't like expose too much, but be very true to the characters. So for example, often we used tele lenses, so like 50 millimeters, 80 millimeters, because of course, like if you're very close with a wide lens, it also looks very interesting, but we just wanted to be like there in the bush, kind of looking and seeing what happens, because everything also in sinking ships is so hidden, and everything is so away from society, so it felt kind of right also with the aesthetic to contradict this terror with kind of beautiful nature, for example, at the same time. So yeah, I always try to not do like the gray, whatever you could also do. I mean, that also sometimes works very well, of course, but in that sense, we wanted to kind of flow with those emotions. Like, I don't know, there must be those moments when you kind of completely forget about everything. At the same time, you just like watching the sun and the water, and then for a moment you're gone, and you kind of try to avoid everything that's happening in your life right now. And that was something that kind of at the course of the film, we started realizing that we wanted to do it that way in that film.
And also, another question, maybe a bit more general about the film work that you have made. So we noticed that a lot of your films are very realistic, including what you have talked about, and you also use a lot of methods to make it more vivid, and also make some contradiction between the relationship of people and the background of nature and so on. And so about these very realistic stories, do you want to express some values through it, or you think it is more important to just focus on the truth or the very realistic stories and scenes in the movie? Which do you think is more important?
Yeah, I think kind of both goes hand in hand, I guess. They're both kind of important. When making those films, I mean, as I said, like in the beginning, like I always looked for something that I could really understand in a realistic standpoint, and yeah, to like when you're on set, you kind of sit there or stand there, and then you kind of look at it and you kind of think, okay, would that happen there, and would that really take place? And yeah, so I always try to not over emotionalize something or over expose something, but to be realistic on the one hand. That was very important to me, or it's very important to me. And then like, of course, like the whole story in the end, when you write the script and you work on the story, you kind of really want to get through what you eventually want to tell, and doing that through those kind of metaphors sometimes, and through those kind of techniques, whatever it is in the end, through the actors, that's as important as the other thing, I think.
What we also wanted to ask is, because the film is like a medium that you can use, it's not only a picture, it's not only a story, but it's like picture, story, music. What in which way would you like to try to explore a little bit more, or which feature do you think you would like to use the most to tell the story? Because at some films the music is the most important ones, at some films the camera is the spectator also, and the one who is like telling the story. What do you think is like for you the most important one?
Yeah, I mean, I would say basically like for those films often it was like the kind of the way those characters interacted, and how they would create some tension, and like how they would be portrayed on screen. But of course, sometimes other kind of ideas come across, or other kind of elements, like the music. For example, before NACAM, I never really worked with a composer who would compose music, and then like the producer, Yannick Gutz, he had this friend, and he was starting to work on the film, and I was very excited to kind of see how much we could put music not only on the screen, but also like as a soundtrack kind of that comes out of the music, this young violinist anyways plays, and kind of merges everything together. And so those kind of aspects also get kind of important to maybe tell something special in that kind of scenario that is also very familiar to many people. But then, like in Sinking Ships, there was no music at all.
Yes.
I didn't want to use any music on a purpose, also because that's like the spectator idea. I just wanted to observe that and to kind of have the sounds as kind of a music. So the roaring or the loud boat in the end, and this hard cut off when the credits start, or the silence in the car, then the heavy rain before they get back in the car and everything. So those kind of sounds are very important, because I thought like she's probably all the time kind of sensing, is there something happening? Is he angry or not? What's gonna happen next? And how are the feelings? So everything should be very clearly kind of listened to and observed in that way. And then with Blind Edition, it was also a mix. There only was the music, like the old kind of music, so I didn't want to like like challenge that with new music or something. I just wanted to keep that in the film and make that the score. But yeah, I think also what is very important in the core of the film is always like how everybody interacts and how to tell a story and how to create this.
Yes. That is exactly what we were discussing, like with Wanmei, the Sinking Ships, like that it doesn't have the background music, but I think like that was like the most important part of making, like, of succeeding with the intense shots, you know, because I feel like if there would be music, it would a little bit like tell you how to feel or what to expect, but without it, you had to kind of make
unexpected.
you had to kind of make your own story.
Yeah.
And
No, that's actually true. Yeah. That's definitely like we did. The funny thing is we did try music at some point, and I felt like, no, I don't want to like how do you say, like, I don't want to like put anybody in any kind of direction while watching the film. I just want to kind of have this kind of objective but super inside view of this relationship. And of course it's not everybody has his or her own opinion on it, and it is still a topic that is very contradictory. I mean, many people talk about it, but then other people don't want to talk about it because they feel very uncomfortable. I mean, we had a hard time, like for example, getting a hotel room for those scenes. They asked like what about, and then we said, oh yeah, it's about that and this, and then they were like, pull back a bit, and that was very strange because it's still like a taboo topic that people don't want to talk about it. And so yeah, that was very important in that film to really have this situation where you don't emphasize anything with music or so. And then also like you have those extremely violent scenes, and you have that scene on the lake, and that was like also during the shooting, it was interesting to hear like suddenly somebody screams so loud, right, that the whole lake would echo back and everything. And so there's weird kind of situations that are so special and so strange at the same time and so brutal. So I didn't want to take anything from that, so I didn't put the music. But yeah, that was very important.
That's cool.
So I have another question about the music, because like in a sinking ship, you use no background music, like to let audiences focus on the character, the tense, the dialogue themselves. But on the other hand, if in some films you use background music, what do you think music what role the background music plays in a film or a specific kind of story.
So yeah, I think it should. I mean, my wish about the music would always be, especially in NACAM where we created new music, we always try to tell the inside feelings and world of the character through that music, and it should never kind of be over something or like be more obvious than it should always like not be that much realized by the audience, but only like felt in a way. And that was kind of important because, for example, we also tried a little bit of music at that moment when he when the officer takes the violin case, where actually at the moment explosives and then also like this is a moment where you kind of want to hear every little noise that's coming out of this case. So for example, there was very clear that we didn't want to like dramatize this moment, which was kind of tense maybe already, and then other ones where we even more wanted to connect to the boy and to understand his feelings up to that moment when he tries to play or rehearse without his violin and kind of imagines the strings that he's playing at that moment with his hand without a violin and everything. So that kind of role, I think that was something that we just wanted to play around with the credits. For example, there's no more piano coming until the very end of the credits. So, and then the piano comes back. So we wanted to like feel this lack of piano and only hear the violins and the credits. And like all this playing around with those kind of things that probably like not people know, and it's always kind of fun.
Let's now try to move away a little bit of from your filmography and also try to represent you a little bit as a viewer, because now you mostly do, as we already said, like these hard topics, these dramas, you know. But what are the films that you are enjoying, and what do you appreciate about those films? Especially like, and also this is what is my question for you as an artist and also as a viewer, like which genre also do you want to explore like furthermore, or which genre do you appreciate the most, or do you like has a I mean it's close to your heart?
So basically what I like viewing is really a lot of films I kind of get attached to. Of course, sometimes I like extreme films where you kind of have it's really hard to say I kind of like, for example, I in my childhood I often watched those films by Alfonso Cuarón, 21 Grams and Babel, because they kind of have this high emotion and this super tense but hyper emotional stories and everything, and you always often get to something or get interested by something that also like maybe is not that familiar with the world you're living in, and to get a view inside of those stories was very great. But then also I love like very precisely worked out films, like be it like David Fincher films where you have this super precision and this kind of like almost like a clockwork. It works inside of the movie, and it's all about the plot and the story and how it comes together, and also like so basically there are many kind of films and stories that I like, but I think it's always important that either they shock you or they like Gaspar Noé style, right?
Yes.
They kind of something that's completely crazy and really really exciting and brutal at the same time. So I can enjoy that as much as I can enjoy like a very very honestly told, I don't know, love film, whatever it is. but I think it's always important to get this bit that's a little bit more closer to real life or to real feelings, basically.
Yes. I forgot what I wanted to say.
I'm not sure whether I answered the second question.
No, you did. I mean, we're just talking, so it's alright. But like as you expressed about noise films, I feel like he is very, at least for me, a very good topic to talk about, like different features, because he has such specific way of camera work and of using music and of like choosing the most absurd stories that like I feel like all when he uses all of the three, that it's just like it's totally confuses you, and it totally like you just fall on the ground watching it, you know. And I feel like that is like super cool, like using all of these features and surprising you in all of the ways, even if you feel terrible after the movie. I think like that's also a really cool feature of the film, you know, because it doesn't always have to be only like exploring yourself in the way of some topics, but also exploring your feelings, you know, how you're feeling after the film.
That's a really good point, I think. Yeah. You kind of want to discover all of the, like, I don't know, like all of the keyboard of your feelings, basically. Like, you see, like, oh, I didn't know I had those kind of keys as well, and you kind of discover so many things about your own self through those kind of stories. So that's why they have to kind of go in all kind of directions, because that's the exciting thing to realize. Wow, I mean, you go into a movie, you maybe don't even know what it was, or before you didn't know what of movie, and afterwards you think, wow, what the fuck, I didn't know I could feel that way, or something like that, and that kind of stays often in your mind. Definitely. Like, that's why I can appreciate that as well, because it might not like make you cry or whatever, but it kind of makes you feel something very interesting or absurd
I
or
feel
whatever,
like it's also interesting
great.
that it touches, like it's more influences also your body, you know, like how the body feels. It's not only like you cannot understand the feelings that you are feeling. It's not something that you could describe to someone, but afterwards you feel like, or pure disgust or pure something, you know, or pure excitement, and then you're like, how the fuck did the movie actually did this to me, you know? And then it's so interesting, like, to go and analyze it a little bit, and you're like, okay, did he use like this and this and this, and this is why I felt like this. But like after the first watch, it's the only thing that can do, it's like it can just, I forgot the word but yeah it can just totally surprise you.
Absolutely. And I've seen, like, now there are coming so many good films out actually at the moment, and you always that also like shows you can connect to so many different worlds, basically, and everybody kind of lives somewhere and is stuck to their surroundings, but through those kind of movies you get to know so many more things and worlds and emotions that are very unique often, and that's probably something you always kind of look for in a way.
So about the kind of movies that how do you find the kind of contradiction between the realistic part and the unrealistic or more imaginative part? Because what you have said that you appreciate or can interest you a lot is the exciting or unexpected part of a film, and how do you find this can have a balance, a richer balance in the film?
Like with like the films we just talked about, or in general, or with how when working, like how to find that.
Yeah, the films that you appreciate, and also the film that you direct yourself. When you are directing, are you also trying to do this?
Mm, mm. Yeah, that's really hard to say. I guess like you always try to understand it very much from the emotional side. So also when you watch a film that you really like and that you're really surprised with, you always kind of think like, yeah, emotionally it is probably very true to what's going to be told, or what the character does at that moment. Often like when you kind of see like, oh, maybe I don't believe something or so, it's often because you kind of realize that you maybe think in a cliche or in a way that people think that things happen, and in reality they happen in a different way. Because like often like humans are very contradictory in what they do and are very surprising, and that's also something you probably want to tell through a film, that people act often in an irrational way, or sometimes more, sometimes less. But that's the interesting thing about film. On the one hand, like you have like a very clear cause and then some action that happens, and you always try to understand life through that. But then also often what is interesting is there are so many things in life that don't have a clear cause, and something else happens, and it completely, you kind of don't understand it. I mean, that's what keeps us kind of awake sometimes when we are struggling with something. And that kind of those kind of sides, if you can kind of combine them, or sometimes more, sometimes less, always doesn't have to be, but if you can kind of combine it, I think that also makes it very surprising and very exciting to watch, and to sometimes also work, because it's a challenge to understand, okay, why would that character now go there, but we maybe can find a way to make it credible and understandable and everything. So I mean, it's always about, every film is always about going to some, and and to emotionally kind of understand that in this form. I think that's very interesting.
What do you think is the aesthetic form, or what do you think is important to the aesthetic part of a film?
Yeah, I think like it's always very important that a film has like some aesthetic that really supports the story in a way. So I just, for example, when you or I mean, there are films that also like show like a lot of big shots and everything, and that also totally works. Like in the stuff that I made now, it was always very important to follow the characters in a very or in the edition I just remembered, we wanted with the camera to kind of be smarter than everybody else. Like the camera should kind of show us things and understand things that would be maybe sometimes ahead of the plot or ahead of the story, and sometimes emphasize something. For example, when he plays this piece and he suddenly engages with his feelings and the music comes up and in his head is the orchestra and everything, the camera turns around and puts him in this point where we don't see the orchestra, we only hear it. So there is a moment where he could basically already be on stage and play there and be part of the orchestra. And so that doesn't really happen there in a realistic way, but or in a like from the point of view of the jurors and the judges. But the camera kind of tries to make this understand the audience, and to kind of put everything together so that the situation would happen. And then there are like different kind of ways. I mean, there are often like also films that are very documentarian, also like that. For like films like Sinking Ships, I also was very clear that we said, okay, we even want to reduce the cinematography even more only to faces. And we also like I think like I kind of told the cinematographer Leo, Gaspari, he wasn't allowed to use any like artificial light or almost no artificial light. So because I wanted to create a scene where this young boy would feel like it would look very realistic around him. So of course there's a cinematographer and everything, but it should become kind of a situation and that was like interesting because suddenly we said, okay, let's look and wait for the moments where the sun is like at the right spot. So when we are here with the camera, it looks kind of the way we want it to look and everything. And yeah, we kept that idea with sticking on the faces also a little bit with NACAM, although there were also other points that came up, like showing like all the details, all the like this idea with the string that he kind of breaks, and then in the end it's kind of gone. And during the course of the film, it's kind of, I mean, I'm not sure whether you saw that, but it kind of loses its cover, and that's like a little bit of a metaphor for the relationship to his friend Igor. And it was very important there to show those details in a very also like observing in that kind of filmic way. And so yeah, I think it's always very important because there are so many options how to tell a story, to kind of go back to what the story is all about and to try to find that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Andreas, we are gonna have to wrap this up a little bit, as yes, we have to finish. But maybe for the ending, you can just talk to us a little bit about the projects you're doing right now and what you're going to explore in the future.
Yeah, so basically now I'm working on some new projects, and one idea is getting close to this film that I just made, NACAM, which was originally planned as a feature film. So we're kind of exploring more of this world of the partisans, and I now got like some, I don't know, like diaries from one of the leaders from this group and everything that I'm trying to translate right now and everything. So that kind of work with alongside from other projects, and so that's kind of the stage right now. And then we're of course like still sending the film to some festivals, and hopefully we'll get accepted there and everything. But yeah, we're really excited to have like the French premiere soon. So yeah.
Amazing. Congratulations on all of it. I feel like all of your projects are getting the awards that they deserve. And thank you today for taking the time to talk to us. And thank you so much for all the interesting topics that you explored. And yes, we wish you all the luck. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. And also expecting your
thanks so much for having that conversation.